I love it. So as Debbie mentioned, really my goal today is to just show you some time-saving tips and techniques to make doing CMAs easy. A little bit about me is I've been an agent now, a realtor for 22 years. Boy, that makes me feel old when I say that. And it really, the thing that makes what we're going to show you today so beneficial is one, it's a wow presentation. So it is set up to wow your sellers. I'm going to show you a couple new releases too as we go through this. I will show you those one-line reports that Debbie mentioned in Paragon, but really the hardest part of actually doing your CMA is finding the comps in Paragon. If you can do that, I'm going to show you the secret easy button that's really going to take all of your hard work that you did in Paragon and load it into a nice wow presentation within Cloud CMA 2. Cloud CMA recently released their live version, which I've been using now, and I'm really impressed with it. It does calculations to show you if the square footage is different from your subject property to your comp. It shows you what the closest comp is. It's going to show you if there's an additional bathroom or bedroom, so you don't have to do as many of those adjustments as you used to. So with that, let's go ahead and get started. And if a little bit of housekeeping here too, if you do have any questions today, so you're seeing something, we're going to go at kind of a pretty good clip. So if you missed something, feel free to type it in that questions box that you're going to be seeing minimized to the right side of your screen. So feel free, again, if you have any questions. I know Debbie usually is great about taking those questions. She can answer them, and a lot of times she'll just jump in and ask your question to the group. So don't be shy.
Crazy.
I love that. I love that. It sort of breaks it up. You don't want to just hear me talk the whole time. So don't be shy. Feel free to type your questions right in that questions panel. And Debbie will answer them, or she'll ask the group if it's, if you've got a common question, she'll go ahead and ask the group, and that way we can go ahead and address it. And with that, I'm going to turn my face off and start showing my screen. Debbie, are you able to see my screen?
I sure am.
All right, awesome. So Cloud CMA does a whole lot. Just to give you kind of the background, they not only do CMAs, but they do buyer tours, they do property flyers, you can do property reports, you can really do so much with Cloud. The thing that I like, and I've used 7 different CMA programs throughout my time in real estate, but the thing I like is Cloud really has an updated look. I like that my contact information is at the bottom of every page. I like that it's easy to read for the consumer, but the thing I like the best is I can also bring in those outside pages. The listing that you're looking at, I just closed about a week ago. And what I wanted to do is I actually sold them that home about 10 years ago. So I brought in the actual MLS listing ticket from when they purchased it. So we could, again, review what they paid, if there were concessions, we can review the detail from that original listing ticket. I also love BSNA. And as a MiRealSource member, remember that you get the BSNA record for Macomb County, Genesee County, and all of the gross points at no additional cost. That's part of your member benefits. We actually pay that for you behind the scenes. So one of the other things I'm a fan of is in my CMA, I want to have my BSNA record, I want to have my realist record, and I want it to be part of my CMA. And the reason I do this, by the way, is I've sat down at those kitchen tables before with a seller, and I've said, okay, based on your square footage, and they look at me and say, hey, Colleen, that's not our square footage. We have 200 additional square feet, or we don't have that much square footage. Well, I want to be able to open up to my BSNA record page, and I want to show them where I gathered that information, where it came from, how many bedrooms, how many bathrooms. So I like to ensure that I have my BSNA record as well as my realist record right in my report. Another thing I do in my CMAs is I want to tell them, especially in this market, I want to tell them what's going on in their marketplace. So the home that I closed last week was in Washington Township, but you can see right here, the inventory had fallen almost 25%. Now, I'm going to be honest, when I'm running these numbers in the last couple of weeks, I'm astonished how our inventory has dropped. Debbie and I were actually looking at one in St. Clair County. The inventory was down 66%. So that's very interesting. And when you can show a homeowner with 2 clicks in market stats, which I include right in my CMA, when you can show them that the inventory is down almost 25%, look what it did to our sales price though. I mean, a lot of times you'll see that those sales prices are going up in reflection to your inventory. So supply and demand, right? You've got a sales price that's gone up dramatically, and the reason is our inventory has gotten much lower. When you're displaying your comps, as I mentioned, one of the nice things is it's going to show you your subject property, and you can also pick how you want those comps displayed. So I'm going to take you through some of the options there as well. And as you can see, my comps are stacked up next to each other, but it will also allow you to show what the sales prices versus the list price was. So on average, it's saying that about 63 days was the average in this market area, and that 97% of the homes sold or the home sold for 97.7% of their list price. So that's huge. There's also some great marketing tools that are already built into Cloud CMA. So again, Cloud does more than just CMAs. We're going to go over the new Cloud Live today, but I'm going to show you right from beginning to end. So again, I've been doing this 22 years, but if you're brand new to the industry and you're just doing your first CMA, I'm going to show you exactly how you arrive here. All right, and with that said, the hardest part of doing a CMA is simply getting the comparables in Paragon. Quite honestly, if you can master that part, the rest is really just a couple of clicks. So that's what we're going to look at now. So when you're doing a CMA, the goal is to tell that homeowner what the subject property is going to be worth by using closed comparables. So again, if you're brand new to the industry, a CMA is a comparative market analysis. And what you're doing is you're basically educating that seller what their home is going to close for. Should they expect concessions? What is the price range or the dollar value that they're going to close at? But it's also knowing apples to apples, meaning if you are listing a 1,000 square foot brick ranch, well, we're obviously not going to want to compare that to a colonial with 4,000 square feet, right? I mean, we want to keep it apples to apples. And so that's what we're going to do. I'm also going to show you some appraiser tips, because you do want to make sure that you're giving a number that's going to appraise. And I'm going to show you kind of what some of the appraisers use when they're figuring out what that square footage range should be, or how many bedrooms or how many bathrooms. So we're kind of going to go run of the mill today. Now, the one thing I do want to caution you, if you're brand new to real estate and you haven't done a CMA yet, if you are working in a more rural area, maybe you're working out in the country where Debbie and I live. Debbie lives in St. Clair, and I live right on the border of St. Clair. I'm out in Richmond. But when we're trying to find comps, sometimes we have to open up these parameters a little bit. So if you are working in an area that I work in often, like Sterling Heights or Harrison Township, or an area where you're going to be able to find comps on every corner, that's great. Then you can absolutely stick to what I'm going to show you. If you are out in the country a little bit and you're doing more rural properties, sometimes you have to expand these parameters just slightly, and I'll show you what I mean as we go through. So today we're going to keep it kind of run of the mill. What we're going to do is we're going to search for our comps. We're going to go to the search icon in Paragon, and then we're going to find the type of property that we're looking to find comps for. Now, here's a little tip that one of my favorite people, Lisa Harris, who's a trainer with us, if you are searching for comps for obviously a residential home or a condo, obviously you're going to go right to this first option. That's going to allow us to search. There's also multi-class that a lot of people don't even know that that's there. That's if you want to search over the class lines. For instance, maybe if you had a buyer who wasn't sure if they wanted to build or buy something existing, and you kind of wanted to set up one search and find everything. But today we're going to stay kind of run of the mill. So we're actually going to go search by class, and we're going to do residential condo. So basically we're looking for a single family home. This is obviously where we're going to put in our criteria so that we can find like comps. So if you're new to Paragon, once you start typing in a particular field, it will obviously show you what can go in that field. But if you don't know what a particular field is asking for, remember, just go over to the hourglass to the right, it'll show you your selections and you can select from there as well. So in this case, I'm not looking for comps on a condo, I'm looking for a single family or residential home. One of the big things is I remember, I hate to date myself, but 22 years ago, Floyd Wickman, who was a big real estate coach at the time, I took his class and he always said, obviously closed are the most important in your CMA because that's the dollar value we know the property's closed for, and that's how we can educate our homeowners what that property will be worth. However, he also used to say, if you're going to sit at someone's kitchen table, they think you are the expert on every property ever listed in the MLS. So you also want to include all actives and you want to include pendings, because if they saw a sign go up in their neighborhood, they are aware of it and they're going to want to ask you questions about it. So of course, closed is your number one thing you're looking for. I try to shoot for 3 to 5. Sometimes I'll even go 7 closed properties. But sometimes you may not find a closed property if you're in those rural areas, as I mentioned. So sometimes you have to kind of expand your search parameters, but closed is really what we're looking for. Actives and pendings are more if we get a question when we're sitting at that seller's table, I want to be able to quickly answer it right in my CMA report. Another thing that Floyd Wickman showed me was he always said, Colleen, never tell a potential seller anything. Show them everything on paper. Prove it to them first, and you'll always win over their trust. And that was a very true rule. If I went in and offered my opinion, it's not near as valuable as if I could show them something on paper that actually stated that, an actual fact. So one of the things he always taught me is when I walk into a seller's home, they are emotionally attached to that property. Therefore, that means they're probably going to think that that home is in most cases, worth more than it actually is. And he always used the story of, I had a homeowner who said, yeah, but this house was built with golden nails, therefore it should be worth 100,000 more than any others. Well, remember, those homeowners are emotionally attached. So golden nails might not mean anything to the buyer buying it. So we have to show them in a logical way why they don't want to overprice their home. One way to do that is to find an overpriced expired, something that maybe has been on the market for 300 days, has had multiple price changes. And so a lot of times I will include one overpriced example that I can have in my CMA. So if they say, okay, Colleen, I know you say that my house is worth between 200,000 and 300,000, but I think we want to try 400,000. I want to be able to tell them, okay, Mr. Schmagegi, I understand that you feel that way. And Joe over here on the corner, he felt the exact same way. And you can see he's now been listed for 340 days and he's had 3 price changes. When you show them something like that, it's really easy to get them readjusted and get them to list at the right price. Okay. The next thing is when you're preparing your comps, in this market, it's changing so fast. We do want to make sure that we're only going about 6 months back. Now, again, in a rural area, you may have to go 9. Most banks really, when they're sending out their appraisers, they don't want to go more than 6 months back because the market is always changing and something outside of 12 months could be totally different. So usually you're going to shoot for 6 months back and work your way up from there. The other thing is I don't want to include any rentals. I want to change this to just what's for sale so I don't have to filter through a lot of leases. But I'm not going to put in anything for my sales price because really what I'm trying to determine is what is that sales price? That's the important part. So I'm going to scroll on down and now I'm going to put in some information so I'm ensuring that my comps are going to be like the subject property. So the first thing I want to ask myself is what type of property is this? Is this a ranch? So if it's a ranch, I'm going to go to structure style. I'm going to say I'm looking for 1-story ranch comps. How many bedrooms? Well, in this case, in our example for today, there are 3 bedrooms. Because there's not a lot on the market right now, I might even go 3 to 4 bedrooms to give myself a little wiggle room. I'm going to be honest, one of the fields I hate the most in Paragon is this field that you're looking at right now, this bathrooms total. And the reason I don't like this is because if you're trying to be really accurate in your CMA, and you put 2 baths here, you might actually be doing a CMA with 1.5 baths. But if I have 2 full baths, that might bring my seller more value. So one little tip that I'm going to give you today is if you scroll on down to where it says secondary criteria, if you open up that secondary criteria box, it will allow you to see bathrooms full and bathrooms half. So if I know this has 2 full baths, I can go 2 full baths, and I'm now not pulling a bunch of bath and a halves. Okay, so if you want to be more specific, by the way, I'm going to use Ed, who is on our call today, just because he was the mixing it up winner, and I saw him log in today. So we're going to use Ed, and we're going to say that Ed is showing around some buyers. And these buyers say, I have 6 daughters. I have to have 3 full bathrooms in my house. Remember that if Ed were to use the bathrooms total, it's literally counting the number of toilets. Think of it that way. It's counting the number of toilets throughout the whole house, meaning he could be pulling some in the basement. He could be pulling some. I swear on my life, I actually saw an agent list a bathroom that was in an unfinished attic. So, you know, crazy stuff happens. So what I want to do is I want to make sure that I'm pulling those 2 full baths from above grade square footage, and that's what these fields allow you to do. These 2 full baths will ensure that you are pulling 2 full baths, not a bath and a half, and it's going to be above grade. So I'm not looking at basement baths there. So just a little tip, you might want to, you can even, by the way, you can move this out of secondary criteria into your primary criteria. Like for me, I want it right up here at the top. I use it a lot more than just the bathrooms total. Okay, some other fields you want to add, you want to make sure that you've got basement. You want to make sure if it does have an attached garage, you use that. One thing I don't use in my CMAs is I don't use the feature codes generally. Because if you put, you know, must have a fireplace to be a comp, and the agent didn't bother to select that feature that it had a fireplace, you might lose a comp that could bring your seller more money. So I generally don't use the feature codes for that. Sometimes people will use it if it's like a septic or, but for me, I like to leave the feature codes off just in case an agent didn't fill it out. And why I say that is features are not required. Like bathrooms, bedrooms, things like that. A lot of those we require you to put in when you're entering a listing. But feature codes are generally optional. So a lot of agents in this market that's moving so fast, they might not go in and fill out all the features. And we certainly don't want you to lose a good comp because they didn't do that. Another question, you might want to put in the number of cars, you know, 2-car garage, 3-car garage, that's fine. But if you go down to where it says above grade square footage, this kind of always stumps people. Like, well, Colleen, if we're trying to figure out, you know, a 1,361 square foot home, what is the range of square feet that I'm looking at? And most appraisers will use a 20% square footage rule. Now, remember that, again, if you're in the country, you may find that you have to kind of wiggle that a little bit. You might have to add a little square footage just to get more comps. But generally, most appraisers are going to use that 20% square footage rule. So in this case, if we have a home that's 1,361 square feet, we're going to take 20% and we're going to add it on top. Then we're going to take 20% off of that number. So just off the top of my head, I'm going to say that would be around 1,050 to maybe 1,550. That would be our 20% square footage range for that property that has 1,361 square feet. And by the way, if you want to do the exact math, you're better than I am quickly, so that's totally fine. Now, what you can see here is we've got our basic criteria, but we've also got 17,696 comps. You would be there for several weeks presenting your CMA. But that's obviously because now we need to put in where the area is. It's all about location, 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 right? So we're going to scroll on up. Now we want to be as precise as an appraiser. Now, an appraiser, when they are doing their CMA, they're obviously doing it on a map, and they're using software to make sure they're staying within a mile or 2 miles, because the banks are going to want to know exactly where they're lending and what the actual comps in that area are going to be. So you're going to do the exact same thing. Instead of filling out area and then going through hundreds of comps and trying to, figure out what's exact, what I would recommend you do is go right to search by map here. Once you click into that search by map field, this is where we're now going to be able to make it very precise. We're going to go right up to this area where you can enter an address. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put my subject property, and less is best here, by the way, a little tip. This is using Google Maps. So this property has to be, happens to be 41539 Wessel Drive. But because I'm using Google Maps, I really want to keep it very short. I want to just put in Wessel. So leave off the drives, the boulevards, the ways, the places, things of that nature. You want to type in the address, comma, the city. And then all you want to do is click the magnifying glass. And that's now going to relocate your subject property to where that subject flag, that little blue flag that you see. It'll show you where maps are, or where the schools are on your map. But now I want to be very precise. Now I want to say I want to find properties within 1 mile of that subject property. So where it says search by radius, I'm going to type in the number 1. I'm going to type in search, and what you're going to notice now is it's now drawing that 1 mile radius of where those comps should be coming from. Now, as I zoom in, you'll notice that those comps are broken out into little flags. So if you click on the flag, right over here to the left, I can see that property and I can go right to the listing ticket if I wanted to review it. Where you see the clustered numbers, it just means that those properties are very close to each other. And because they are, it's kind of just clustering them together so that you don't have problems opening each individual flag. All right, so if I click on this 4, for example, well, it's going to allow me to go through those clusters of 4, and I can go through them one by one over here on the left, as you can see. Couple quick things about using Google Maps that I really like is if you are one-stepping your listing appointment. So some people will do a listing appointment in 2 steps. They will go, they'll meet the homeowner, take some pictures, maybe take some measurements, get to know the homeowner, and that's great. Other people want to do it in 1 step, meaning that they're just going to show up at the house, they're going to have all their information, but they haven't gone there previously to meet the homeowner or get the additional information. So some people 1-step it, some people 2-step it. Either way is fine. However, if you are not familiar, let's say you don't know this sub that well, and you don't want to drive all the way over to that sub to check it out, and then drive all the way back for your appointment, well, remember this, because it uses Google Maps, you can also utilize that little Google man that you see over here to the right. It's kind of like a little yellow guy. If I kind of want to check out the subdivision without having to drive over there first, I can grab this little yellow man and I can actually set him right in front of my subject property here. And I can check out the neighborhood. I can go house by house, street by street. I can view everything to the right. I can do a 360 view. I can view everything to the left, so I can actually see the neighbor on both sides of that subject property. Another cool thing that it will do is you'll see the subject property flag actually appears on the property. So I know, okay, here's my subject property, here's the neighbor to the right, here's the neighbor to the left, but I can check out the neighborhood. I can see, is it a declining market? Is this a popular place? I can actually kind of walk down the streets and see, is this on a cul-de-sac, which I can see it is over here at the end. So there's a lot of information I can gather just by doing the Google map, moving that little yellow man right in front of that subject property. Okay, to get back, I'm going to click on this arrow here to the left where you see my mouse, and that's going to take me back to my map. One other thing that I didn't know for a long time, and when somebody showed me, I was absolutely thrilled, because every once in a while, especially if you're working maybe on waterfront. So let's pretend for a moment, I'm going to use Ed again, our mixing it up winner from last week. We're going to pretend that Ed just listed these 3 properties where you see my mouse. And we're going to pretend that, congratulations, Ed, you listed those 3. They're $1 million homes. We're going to pretend this is kind of waterfront right here where you see the park and the outline here. And that's great. And I'm happy he's got these $1 million listings. But let's face it, if I brought these into my CMA, if I'm listing a little brick ranch a ways off the water back here, well, what that's going to do is radically screw up my CMA numbers, or I'm going to have to go deselect a bunch of properties. So here's a little tip. If you simply go to the draw button, which is over here to the left, and you pick a shape, so I'm going to say I'm going to use the polygon shape here, and I'm going to say I just want anything on the waterfront I do not want to include in my CMA. I can literally choose to draw a shape to exclude that waterfront area. Now you're probably thinking, lady with the big hair, that isn't excluding anything. You just drew another shape. Well, yes, what you want to do is you want to go to Edit. You're going to go to where it says Include, right here where you see my mouse. And this time you're going to click that little blue button and you're going to exclude that shape. Now what you're going to see is it actually pulled those $3 million waterfront properties out of my CMA. So I don't have to worry about including them. Okay, if you make a mistake in doing that though, you can also just simply click on the X to the right and it will pull that off. Where I have really found this useful is either with waterfront, or if you are looking at a subdivision. I listed a house recently that half of the subdivision was new construction and half of the subdivision was the really old 1930s and 40s homes. Obviously, the new construction homes were worth significantly more. They were much larger, but I didn't want to have to go through and deselect a bunch of comps. So what I did is I actually just drew the line where the new construction started, and that way I didn't have to go through and analyze a bunch of comps I really didn't want. Okay, so just a couple little tips there. Keep in mind, if you are trying to figure out if something is in a floodplain, you can also use the they kind of look like stacks of paper here to the right. You can actually go in and you can add attendance zones for schools. You can do floodplain information. The only thing is, remember, when you're using some of these, you may have to zoom in or zoom out. As you can see, here's our floodplain right here. So just remember, you can use those if you're trying to put a little more information into your CMA. All right, so I've got my comparables now. And by the way, a recent change that Paragon made is when you're doing a CMA, you're basically using these 3 tabs. So we have our criteria tab, we have our map search tab, so that's our map, and then we have our run search. So if you realize you forgot to add something, you can always jump back to the criteria, you can add it in. This also allows me to see how many comps I'm actually up to. Now, if I were doing this due to time, I'm not going to be too detailed. If I were doing this, I would probably put in the number of car garage. I would dwindle it down to get the most information as possible. But I've got about 34 here. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead. I'm going to either hit count if I want to know how many I have, or search. Let's just quickly go in and pull up some of those results. Now, I'm going to be honest, one of the biggest flaws for me is that I have terrible OCD, and I hate the way this is all sorted and jumbled together when it comes back. I want to be able to see my actives with my actives, my closed with my closed, and I want to see just what I'm actually working with. So in order to do that, I would actually go up to status, select that column heading, and what you're going to notice is it's now going to sort closed with closed, pending with pending, and if I had any actives, they would be right up at the top. Now, due to the shortage of inventory right now in this particular neighborhood, you can see there are no actives. What I do have is I have some closed properties and then my pendings down below. Right up here, it's kind of giving me a mini breakdown of what the average list and the average sold is for this particular area. I know this particular area pretty well. My grandmother lives there. And so when I'm going through these comps, what I'd like to do is obviously you want to go in, you want to inspect them. Sometimes you'll find, maybe the copper's been stripped out of a particular home, and that's why it closed so much lower than all the others. So obviously I want to go through a lot of the detail. For the sake of time, I'm not going to go through too much of that today. What I am going to do is I'm just going to grab a few comps. and I kind of want to show you how to sort and filter. So again, you can click on any of these column headings. You can sort them by price. You can sort them by year built. You can even move column headings so they're easier to see and adjust. So, you can move them backwards. You can move them forward if you want something in a particular order. Again, when you have these actually lined up, you can also hit that checked button. Now, what I'm just working with is the ones that I selected. So instead of having a bunch that I really didn't mean to add, I can click off the ones I want, hit this checked button, and now I'm only working with the ones I selected. I'm not seeing a bunch of comps that I really don't need, okay? So as Debbie mentioned, really some of the convenient things about Paragon is that we have some custom CMA reports already done. Now, as I showed you in the beginning of our class, the CMA that I have done in cloud is the wow factor. But let's pretend for a moment that Debbie is just going to go over and list her brother's home. I don't even remember if Debbie has a brother. That's terrible to say. But if Debbie has a brother, she's going to go over and list his home. She doesn't need the full wow CMA report. She just is going to give him the, the comparables themselves. Well, that's when you can actually go to the reports section where you see my mouse in Paragon. And this is where you can actually choose the CMA folder. Debbie says, I have my fair of siblings. I have each. Very good. So this is for Debbie's brother in that case. We're going to go to the CMA folder, and we're going to do a quick view. Okay, so these are 3 easy CMA reports. If you don't want the wow factor, you just want something easy and quick, right under your report selection, you can do the quick view. This then stacks the properties next to each other. And by the way, you can even customize which of the fields you want to display. So there's a little customize button right here, and you can add and remove fields from your display. So if you wanted to show, I don't know, price per square foot, I think that's actually already there. But if you wanted to show one that wasn't here, you could actually just go up to customize, add that field in, and then you can actually see that particular field displayed on each of the comps that you selected. Now that's great, but maybe Debbie says, you know what, my brother doesn't need all of that. I just want to know, I'm going to tell him what the house is worth. I just want a summary. Give me a summary of the properties that we chose. Well, that's where we could go back into reports, back into the CMA summary, and same thing. Now I can see the breakdown of the price per square foot, the sold price, how long it was listed, how many bedrooms, cumulative days on market. I can see all of that right from here. And you can, as you can see in this market, especially in this particular neighborhood, things are selling in usually 2 to 3 days. So really, really quick. So remember, if you're just looking for something fast and easy, you don't need the whole wow report. That's when you can go to the reports, the CMA folder, and you'll find those quick reports right here. But me, I'm kind of the wow person. I want to show that I put some homework and some effort right into that CMA. I want to show them, what they can expect in their home. So that's where the magic easy button comes into play. I'm all about the easy button. So I'm going to go up to actions. Now, here's where it can get a little bit tricky. So we might want to jot this down if you're taking notes. Excuse me. In the actions button, you have add to CMA, which is the Paragon CMA. I am not a fan of the Paragon CMA. I'm going to be totally honest. I don't think it's as easy to use. I think it takes a lot longer to set up. So the one I want you to use is Cloud CMA. But be careful because there's Cloud CMA Buyer Tour, which you can put together if you're showing houses to a buyer. It makes a really nice presentation for especially a first-time home buyer. And then right under that is actually the one we're looking for. We are looking for the Cloud CMA report. So we're going to click on that and think of that as your easy button. That's kind of, if you can just remember that one thing, start in Paragon, click the easy button, most everything else will be done for you. So let me show you what I mean. When I did that, down here, you'll notice those MLS numbers came over for me. By the way, it does not matter if they are real comp MLS numbers, MISRIC MLS numbers. We now have 95% of the state in our data share, meaning that you can see 95% of the listings across the state, and we're working on getting those remaining 5% right now. So no matter what MLS it was listed in, when you select it in Paragon, it's going to come over here for you. All you have to do is really easy. You have to name your report. So we're going to call this Sally and Seller. If you wanted to put some private notes in, like, you know, referral from so-and-so, something like that, you can put that in the private notes that only you as the agent see. Over here, it's going to ask you for the property address. This is something really cool because as soon as you start typing in the property address, as you're about to see, it will start quick filling for you. Now, there's a reason it actually does that. When it starts quick filling, you'll notice it went out and it got the square footage for us, the bedrooms, the bathrooms, and some base information. If you have a photo, you can go ahead and upload it here. If you don't have a photo, it will actually do a Google overhead shot. Now, one of the things that I do is I go to the BS&A record even before I start my CMA. So you can also grab the shot of the home right from the BS&A record. Many times I'll do that. I'll open up the BS&A record. I'll just grab a screenshot of the home and I will actually pull it in right here. So if I haven't been to the home before, again, it still looks like I did all of my homework and it allows me to add a really nice photo right from there. All right, so the hard part is really done. You've now gone in, you've got your tax records, you're going to go ahead and hit fetch listings. Behind the scenes, what it's going to do is it's going to pull up that property information that you just gathered in Paragon, and it's going to start to organize it for you. So Debbie kind of told my story when I did my very first CMA. I was all nervous, you know, I'm all new. And I remember my broker kept saying, Colleen, get the price down, get the price down, get the price down. So, you know, I get these low comps. And the very first comp that I showed them happened to be a foreclosure. And half of the plumbing and stuff was missing from the inside of the home, unfortunately. So the very first comp I showed my seller, you could see the panic and awe in her face. She got so frustrated with the first comp that I showed that I almost didn't get to show comp number 2 and 3, which obviously were better comps. So the idea is sometimes it's also rearranging your comps in the right order. So if 182 is really low, maybe I want to make that a little bit lower in my order of the comps, or maybe I want to just not make it the first one. I can actually choose by simply dragging and dropping the comp into place where I want that to fall. If you're looking at a particular comp, like I'm looking at this one and I'm like, oh, geez, 255, no way, that can't be right. Well, maybe I want to go back into my details and adjustments, and maybe I want to go through those photos again. Maybe I want to go through some of the additional information again. I can do that right from here. Instead of starting all over though, I can also just deselect it and remove it from my report. So by deselecting it, I don't have to start again. I can just remove it so it's not going to be displayed in my CMA report. One of the things you can also do is you can add value by putting in notes of things like maybe this is the only house that didn't have an attached garage. You might want to be able to put that right in your notes. I remember back in the day, I would do a sticky note or a little Post-it note on each comp that we were looking at. And that way I wouldn't forget to tell them, oh, that one didn't have central air, or, oh, that one just had a remodeled kitchen. But now you can actually type it right into the description. So maybe I want to add something like this was a remodeled kitchen, premium granite, whatever I want to type in there. So there's 2 ways of doing that. I personally like to do the notes right in the description. I generally will bold them so I know what were my notes and what were the MLS comments that came over. But down below, you can also add a positive or negative adjustment here. So maybe they did a kitchen remodel and I feel that that might bring a positive adjustment of $3,000. I can go ahead and save that. And now you can see it's actually doing an adjusted price here. Now, I don't like homeowners personally to get different numbers because they might be confused of the adjusted price versus the value. That's why I generally will just put it in as a note up here, but it's just personal preference how you wanted to do that. So another tip is if you don't always know, let's say that you're new and you're not sure what the positive or negative value would be for something. For instance, if you, I wish I was Joanna Gaines, you know, she's really great of like walking in a house and saying, oh yeah, if we just flip this kitchen, this is going to bring you X amount of dollars and, you know, we should have this done in this amount of days and it'll be perfect. And I unfortunately am not that talented. So I need to rely on tools that will help me. And one of those tools can actually be found in RPR. There is, let's see if I can show it to you relatively quickly here. There is a tool called, and I'll actually show my screen here so you can see it. In RPR, which is the Realtor Property Resource that you get as a benefit of being a NAR member, what it allows you to do is type in any property address. So we'll use our Westfield Drive here. As you start to type in the address, it will quick fill for you. So helps if I spell Sterling Heights.
I think you forgot the L on Wessel.
Oh, thank you. I'm like, why is that?
That's why it wasn't popping up. I'm like,
still find it. That is the beauty of technology. Even when the blonde gets it wrong, it still comes up with the property. All right, so sorry about that. When I'm looking at this property record, I can go right up to refined value. And this is where you can use a tool that will help you figure out what those adjustments may be worth. So if I go to add a home improvement, maybe I want to know what a major kitchen remodel, very upscale, would be in this area. Because remember, it's using the zip code and it's using the area to determine this. The big thing about that is obviously if you did a $20,000 kitchen remodel in California, right on the beach, it's going to be worth a whole lot more than if you did a $20,000 kitchen remodel, let's say, you know, in XYZ city over here. So it's actually looking at the area, and it's also looking at what you thought of the work as the agent, and it's looking at when they completed it. Obviously, the older the renovation, the less it's going to be worth. And then how much money that they actually spent to do that renovation. So we'll say $10,000. So I've now put in that it was an upscale kitchen remodel. So when that homeowner says to me, well, Colleen, we just put $20,000 into our kitchen, we think that should give us $50,000 more for our list price, because sometimes that is how they think, right? That's when I want to be able to pull this number out and show them, well, according to NAR, when I went in and I plugged in how much money you spent and we did it on this and this date, the value will give you about a $5,700 return. Now, what I've done is instead of being the bad guy and offering an opinion, remember what I said about the Floyd Wickman Day, show them everything, don't tell them anything. This allows me to not be the bad guy. I can simply show them on paper what that value was. And a lot of investors are now even using this as their guidelines when they're flipping houses, so they can kind of understand what that rate of return is going to be. So again, it takes you and your opinion out, and it makes you the friend because you're showing them a fact, which I'm a huge fan of. So anyway, that's under RPR. Sorry, Debbie, I didn't mean to totally segue into a whole different product, but just seemed like kind of a good thing to do. So RPR is a great tool for using in just kind of a quick way to show them what that value is worth. So if you're trying to figure out what these adjustments are, don't worry. If you don't know it off the top of your head, use that RPR tool. It'll give you at least, it's not the Bible, but it's a good starting point if you're like someone like me who doesn't really know the value as far as adding, you know, garages or doing kitchen remodel or something like that. Okay. All right, so going through, if I didn't want to use that particular comp, as I mentioned, one of the nice things here is we can simply deselect it. We don't have to start all over. And as I go up, I can even do a price range. One of my favorite stories here is I listed a little home in Sterling Heights. From the outside, it was a dollhouse. It was so cute. Every flower was planted in a perfect row, just an adorable little perfectly maintained red brick home with the black shutters, very cute. I literally walked in though, and my first step inside the door was into 4-inch blue shag carpeting. The walls had those Brady Bunch like stick-on flower wall decals, you know, the big orange and yellow ones, the kind that you will not forget in your lifetime. So when I walked in, I knew, wow, I did not price this house properly because I had not been in it yet. I was one-stepping the listing. Well, in that case, if you give yourself a suggested price range, that gives you a little more wiggle room. If you print your CMA out, well, you better go to the bathroom and rip that page that you said your house was going to be worth this. You might want to rip that one out. The nice thing is if you are doing this on a tablet or you're using the live version, or if you are even using the tablet-friendly version, you can hit edit and you could make a change to that and they will never know anything different. If you are going to print it, you may want to do a suggested price range here. So I can kind of see my average is going to be about 207. So maybe I want to give myself a little wiggle room and I want to say my suggested price range is between 200 and 210. Okay, now I've given myself that little wiggle room if I haven't seen the property yet. All right, and remember, a good thing to do is always go to the BS&A record and the Realist record, get as much information as you can on the property, but also check the MLS for those sold comps, because a lot of times you can see the photos and see the information right from there and kind of know what you're working with. If you would like to do a net sheet in your CMA, you can actually open up the net sheet. You can type in, let's say, transfer tax or commission or home warranty, and you can figure out that amount and it will be part of your CMA. Now, as I mentioned, I'm a huge fan of Transaction Desk because it does an automatic net sheet, meaning it calculates the things out for me. So if you use that, you can still save it as a PDF and pull it into your CMA. That way you don't have to do as much calculating. I'm not great with math, so it's a little bit easier for me to just pull that in after it's been calculated. All right. So I'm going to be scrolling up to the top. It's going to give me kind of an idea where the comps are coming from. But this is really kind of an organization page for the agent. It's kind of like one last chance to make sure you're happy with the comps that you selected and pulled from Paragon. Then we're going to go into the customization. Now, if you customize this, the good news is if you do this one time, you don't have to do it again. That's really the benefit of cloud. On average, my CMA at this point takes me about 7 minutes. And the reason is I have my template and my layout and everything already done. So all I have to do is pick the comps in Paragon, hit the easy button, that actions button, and everything else is really laid out for me. What you do want to do is if you are new and you haven't used cloud before, you want to go into your theme here and you want to pick the theme that is going to be closest to your company color. So obviously, if you're with RE/MAX, you don't want to show up with the Century 21 balloon on your report, right? You want to make sure that you're picking the right company colors so that it's reflective of you. I do like the modern ones because it actually will put your picture at the bottom and then it will apply your theme. The next one you're going to see is layout. And this is not really the layout of your report, by the way. This is the layout of your comps. How do you want your comps stacked up? If you want a shorter report, you may want your comps side by side. So they're all in nice little columns and it doesn't take up a whole lot, especially if you're going to print it. If you're going to email it or present it right on your laptop, then you might want to add some more detail. So the one I like the best, my personal preference, is the photo with max data. That gives you the most information from the MLS. Just like I showed you in the previous page where you can organize your comps, well, you can also organize the layout of your pages. Only last year, they also added a preview of your page. So if you kind of want to see a particular page before you add it in or remove it from your report, you can click on the name of the page and it will show you a really quick view of actually what's going to be on that particular page. Okay, so it kind of makes it easy to choose what you want. The first time you go in, you'll notice that your CMA report that we're looking at, pretty much has all the pages on it. Can be a little overwhelming. Now, there are some agents who like to have, 100 pages in their CMA. I, unfortunately, am not that agent. I am kind of a meat and potatoes girl, which is probably why I will always be chunky in my life. But I just want to show them basically what the home is worth, how am I going to market their home, and give them some basic details of what's going on in their market. I don't need, a lot of people will put, 5 pages of their testimonials. And if you want to do that, that's fine. You absolutely can. I just want my report to be a little bit shorter and more concise, but it's personal preference, whatever you want.
Hey, Colleen.
Yes.
I do have a question from Michelle, and she asks if you could cover again why the range of 200 to 210 versus the lower and high range of 186 to 236 respectively. Okay.
Great question. Really good question. I actually just grabbed those numbers quickly, Michelle. When you're doing your CMA and you're going through your comps, you're going to right at the top of Paragon where we were. Let me jump back there for just a moment. Kind of show you, you're going to be able to kind of get an idea of where your range is right here. So my list is about 211 to 216. This is where really doing your homework is going to come into play. And if you two-step your listings, let's face it, you're going to have even more information to give an accurate price range. If you are one-stepping your listing, you've never been in there before, that's when you're probably going to do a more adjusted range, a little bit of a larger range. One other thing to keep in mind is when you are doing your homework on properties, because it's a really good question, it's kind of twofold. I recommend, again, going into the BS&A record, which you'll find under taxes. You type in the address and it will pull that up for you. But I also recommend checking Realist, because Realist will also show you what they paid for the property. It'll show you if they refied the property. It'll show you how much they refied the property for. And a lot of times, if you're about to walk into someone's home and you are about to tell them that their home is worth $150,000, and they just bought it for $165,000, well, you better be able to be prepared to justify to them why they're not going to get what they think it's worth, or why they're going to be upside down in their home. So that's where going into Realist and kind of having that information, being armed with that information is so handy. So as I mentioned, when you're doing your homework, as you can see here, when I start doing my homework, I need to know how many bedrooms, how many bathrooms, especially if I haven't been in the home. So this is where I'm going to start. I can see that it has 3 bedrooms, 1,361 square feet, 2 baths, built in 1973, when it was last sold. I actually sold this property. So if I scroll down, I can see who had it listed. I can see who was the selling agent. But here's that mortgage history that I told you about. When they purchased it, when it was refied. If it was in foreclosure, you're going to be able to see that. So right up here, you can see when it went onto the market, an investment company bought it, they ended up flipping it. So I can see all of that detail. So be sure that when you're researching your property to come up with that price range, that you're also looking at the detail in Realist and BS&A to make sure that when you're sitting with them, you say, okay, I know they just paid $160. I'm about to tell them it's worth $162. They're going to lose money by the time they pay commission, transfer tax, and all of that, so that you're able to justify it and be ready to handle those objections before you get there. Okay, one of the other things, and that brings me to a really good point. So thank you, Michelle, for your question, because that brings me to kind of where we were going next. When you are doing your CMA, you also want to make sure you have this information in your CMA. So I'm going to print this as a PDF, and I'm going to save it right to my desktop or download it to my desktop. So as you can see, I just do a quick print. I'm going to save it as a PDF. It's now going to go into my downloads folder, and I'm going to pull that into my CMA because I want to have that custom page in there. And I'm going to show you how to do that in just a moment. All right, does that make sense? Did that answer Michelle's question, Debbie? Did that answer her question?
Yep, she said a big fat thank you on that one.
All right, good. I'm always happy when I get one. So sometimes I get off on my, going into 9 other directions. So happy if I don't answer your question or you have a question, just make sure you type it in. Debbie will get it answered. And if I go off track, she'll get me rerouted back to where I got to go. All right, so as I mentioned, when you're going through, you can actually preview what those pages are going to look like ahead of time. When it comes to setting up your report, if you want to add something in, so here's how it works. Anything that says your report, your CMA report, anything down below is what's going to be in your report. Anything over here under additional content can be added to your report. So let's say I wanted to add all the photos for the comps. Well, I can click that plus. It's going to add that to the listing section. Now I have all the interior photos that were in the MLS in my report. If I want to add a particular marketing page that Cloud has, again, I can click on it to see it. This page says features that sell, just talks about sprucing up their home and sellable features in a home. If I want to add that in, I simply click on the plus. Now it's been added to my report. If I want to remove a page, let's say I don't want all of this marketing and information in here, I can actually go in and simply click on the minus and remove that page. There are custom pages that you can do by clicking on edit. You can copy and paste your marketing plan. I'm going to show you that a little bit more when we get into the features, the custom pages and so forth. Okay, so if you do create custom pages, which I will show you in just a moment, if you want to add those custom pages to your report, like your market stats, I have one that I created in here I'm going to show you. If you want to add a custom page in, you just go to your custom page section, which after you have created a custom page will show up right here on the left. All you're going to do is you're going to click on the plus and it will add that item in. So if I want to add my BS&A record, I click on the plus, it's added in. Condition of the property, add it in. Let's say I want to do market conditions, add it in. All I'm going to do is click on that plus and it's going to pull that record into that property. Okay, so I'm just going to go ahead and grab a few here. A couple other ideas that I have used, something that I created was brought up in a class a while back, and then I came up upon a property recently in Warren, and it was kind of a special property. When I say special, it was horrible. I walked in and it had really taken a beating from some tenants who lived there. The problem with this particular house was it was a foreign investor who bought it. He had never been in the home. The home needed a tremendous amount of work. It was actually tagged by the city as needing a C of O. The inside was almost completely trashed. But the problem is the investor was really looking at the neighborhood comps. And I was going to have to tell him why this home was not going to be worth all the other homes on that street. So what I did is I actually went in and I took pictures of the property, and I think this is the one. Yeah, I took pictures of this particular property, and when I displayed the CMA to him, and again, he was from another country, I was able to show him why the property was not going to sell for what he thought or what he was told it should sell for. A lot of the cupboards were broken out, as you can see here. The water main was broken. The hot water heater had actually been stolen. It's kind of a problem. But what I did is I went in, I took these photos, I just saved them into a Word doc, and then I brought that right into my cloud report. So when he said to me, well, Colleen, my neighborhood guy had told me it was worth $175,000. Well, I could go in here and I could say, well, actually, no, let's actually take a look at the condition of the property and some of the things that we're going to have to do to get this on the market. It really helped me justify what price I was going in with. And so if you have a property like that where you need to, maybe he hasn't seen the property, or maybe it's an investor situation, don't be afraid to take photos and actually just include those in your CMA. Another thing that I used for my custom pages, let's see if I can find it quickly, is my sites page. Maybe I didn't add it. Give me 1 second. Here it is. Thought I added it, but I guess I didn't. All right, my sites page. This is another custom page, and if you have some company marketing pages, like I was talking to a broker the other day, and he was with Remax, and he said, "Oh my gosh, we got these great balloon pages, and they're color brochures, and we have access to them. How do I get those in my CMA?" You can absolutely bring those types of things in. If you're with ABC Realty and you don't have any of those marketing pieces, you can also create your own. I'm going to show you how to do both. This is one that I created. And one of the common questions I got asked every time I sat down with a seller was, "Colleen, how are you going to market my home?" The big question always is, are you going to put my home on Zillow, right? How many times have you heard that? So what I decided to do, instead of having to answer that question individually every single time and wait for it to come up, I made this the third page of my CMA. And it's got basically all the icons for the big companies. And it says that I'm going to put you on over 400 different sites. So again, I'm answering an objection even before they ask it. And I'm doing it with my custom pages. So it makes it really, really easy. All right. Once you have your report all set up, the last and final step is to just click publish. Now remember, if you ever make a change to your report, the other day I spelled the seller's name incorrectly. So if you put in Joe Fumagalli and you spelled it wrong, remember you can make that change, but in order for that change to now appear on all the pages, you want to do the publish report. Think of that as kind of your save button. When you're ready to now view that report, you're going to click on View PDF. And now I can, just like I showed you in the beginning, obviously I didn't put a photo in here, so it does that nice Google overhead shot that I mentioned. It's going to have my company information, what is a CMA if I wanted to say that, and a lot of information about me. Here is that layout that I recommended with the max photo and max data. That's going to pull all the MLS information in. And when your seller says to you, "Yeah, but did Joe Fumagalli have a finished basement?" Well, the great news is, as I go through all those photos, I can say, actually, let's take a look at Joe Fumagalli's basement. Oh, there it is. So now I can better answer his questions because I have all of the details from the MLS. Okay. Again, there's some good marketing pages. I don't use a ton of the marketing pages that are here. I do use the analysis pages to kind of show you price per square foot, average days on market. In this neighborhood, homes actually sold above their list price, 102.4% and 6 days on the market. Here's my suggested list price page. So kind of like Michelle was saying, you might have to play with that a little bit. You're going to get more of that kind of out of the Paragon side. And then some of the marketing pieces. This is one piece I do like to add. I don't use any of the other marketing pieces, but I do like this one because I guarantee you when you meet with that seller and you show them my commission is going to be X, most of the time they think, "Oh my gosh, you're going to make all of that money and you know what, I'm never even going to see you again," right? That's what's going through their head. They generally don't understand that that commission is being split in 4 sections of the pie. We have to pay a buyer's agent. We have to pay our broker, we have to pay our marketing fees, we have to pay the buyer's broker. So sometimes these graphs and this information, again, can help handle those objections of like, wow, that seems like a lot of money. Okay. All right, so that is kind of how to do it in a PDF style. Now you don't have to print it. You of course can print it, but you could also save it right to your desktop and you could go through it that way if you didn't want to print it. With the numbers of COVID obviously going up and up and up right now, the makers of Cloud CMA rushed out, wasn't supposed to be out until December of this year, but actually they rushed it out in March. They have a new interactive live version. And I have to be honest, I am loving it so much. This is kind of the direction I'm going with all my CMAs now. Even if I'm meeting with the homeowner, I'm still using it, I'm still showing it. When you click the live version, which by the way is right on your CMA page, the live version is right down here. When you click that live version, what it's going to do is give you an interactive way to present this to your seller. So if you want to present it via Zoom, if you want to present it via Skype or Google Hangout, you go to this little hamburger stack you just figure out, how do I want to do my virtual meeting? You pick your the way that you want to present it, so via Zoom or via Skype or Hangout, or Screen is actually the people who made Slack, which is a program we use at the MLS too. You just pick how you want to present it and you hit start. It's going to allow you to connect your live streaming service in a way that you can present it over the phone. So hopefully we won't have another shelter in place, but if that ever does come, this is a way that you can still do business. You can still present your CMA right over a live streaming service. When you go up to the top, they've also added some other unique pieces. So I can jump around in my CMA, or I can just hit start presentation and present from the beginning to the end. But one other thing they added is you can now put a link. So if you've got a testimonial video, if you've got maybe a resume, maybe you did a 30-second little video on your phone about who you are in the industry and why they should list with you, you can actually now embed those video links right into Cloud Live. Again, you can talk about your company, but there is one thing in here that I'm totally in love with, so I want to show you that. I'm kind of a geek. I get a little excited about all the technology stuff, but one thing I really do love is the way you now can present comps. Here's our subject property. It's going to show them what's closest to them. It's also going to show them what percentage of the square footage is different. So again, if you had 14% less square footage in a home, that might be why it closed for 190, and we're saying you should probably be at 199, right? Or if it had more square footage, or this one had an additional bathroom. Maybe an additional car garage, as you can see here. So it's all listed out, and that way you can just review it on the spot. But that's actually not even my favorite feature. I like that one. My favorite feature is if you are presenting this live, and you're like me, I always get a little nervous before a presentation and want to have everything spot on. I do all my homework. Maybe they ask you about a property that you didn't include in your CMA. And generally, this, by the way, is not the agent's fault. This is that, you know, you're comparing ranches and they're asking you about 167 down the street, and it happens to be a 2-story. So therefore, you didn't put it in your report. Well, not really our fault, but we still want to show we are the expert in the industry, right? So you can actually go right up here to map. You can actually open up the map and pull comparables that you did not have in your report in for their review. Now, I love that because you can see all these dots on the map. So if they say, well, what about, I don't see the one on Marygrove over there. You didn't add that one into the report, and I heard they closed for 210. I am not tracked, right? I can now go to that particular comp, click on that, whatever that comp is. Now we're going to see it over here to the left. Oh, well, I didn't use the one on Marygrove because this one was actually a bi-level or tri-level or whatever it happened to be. And it had 32% more square footage, therefore I didn't use that as a comp. Now, if for some reason you did miss a comp, you could always click, okay, include this comp now in my report. You haven't missed a beat. You've now just adjusted your numbers on the fly. Most of the time I find that it's because it's a comp that really isn't a comparable, and then I have to educate that seller on why. But it's still really good when you're on, when you're in a live scenario, to be able to just pull it in on the fly without having to go to 2 other programs to make that happen. All right, so a couple other quick things in Cloud CMA. So I showed you how to do the live. You just click on live. Really, really simple. You're not going to do anything different in the setup. It's set up the exact same way. You can click on the PDF. If you wanted to email it over to your client, you can click on those little menu dots. You could make a slideshow out of it. You could email it right from here. So really, really easy. If you've got an old one you want to remove, you can delete it from here. When it comes to the custom pages, which I want to show you now, these are, you can add in pages that already are created by your company, or you can go in and just edit, copy, and paste simply. So I'm going to go up to this picture right here where you see my little avatar. And when you go up to your avatar in Cloud CMA, you will see custom pages. They also have a great lead generation product. Debbie does a great lead generation class. We have that. that happens several times a month. They're also recorded on our YouTube channel. And so we've got a great lead generation class that will show you how to use that free tool to go out and get new listings. And I've used it. It really works. It's a great tool. Custom pages work like this. When you go into custom pages, you can find the custom page you're looking for. You can view it, or you can go to the pencil icon. So if I wanted to add a resume, I could go to this pencil icon and I could simply copy and paste what I want. I can put links in, I can put videos in, I can do any adding of the information I want from here. But if you've got that page, you saw me save that BSNA record or that real list record. If I want to bring those types of pages in, well, the quickest way to do that is just, go a little faster here, is just to click upload a PDF. So you click upload a PDF, just pick where you have it. I think I did that in my downloads folder here. Yep, here's our property details from Realist. I double click on it. It's that simple. You've just created a custom page. And as you can see, it just took a few seconds. One that I really, really recommend that you do is market stats. I talked about that before. Market stats is so easy because you can show a seller exactly what's going on in their market with literally 2 clicks. So if I go to resources and I go to market stats, that's where I can actually click on my map. I can open up those stats for a particular area. And as you can see, I've actually got a whole, slew of them here in Cloud. I'll show you one I just did for, I think that was Chris. We'll use this one. Bear with me one second while I open that one up. And again, just having those custom pages, bringing in those market stats, bringing in the BSNA record, bringing in, those, they're quick and easy to do, but by having those stats located right here, I can quickly show them. And here's a really good one. That's why I wanted to show you this one. In Casco right now, out by where Debbie lives. The Casco stats, look at these numbers, down 60% in inventory. So let's look at our sales price. Okay, our median sales price went from $215 to $225. Why did it go up 10,000 in 1 year? Well, again, supply and demand. If you're down that low, there's not enough to buy. We also can see we had 10 homes that were on the market this time last year versus the 4 this year. You can see average days on market, just about the same as they were. So the idea is you can quickly go in and you can pull these stats, save it as a PDF, and then pull it right in. To do that, you're going to go right to market stats. Debbie, are you seeing my screen still? Let me make sure. Actually, let me go to the audience view. Oh yeah, okay, you are. I'm going to go to.
Sorry, it took me a little too long to get my microphone.
Sorry, are you still seeing my, I got a little blip that said that my internet connection might have been acting up. So I just want to, can you see that screen?
Yep. See, and I was researching to make sure that I already did a quick tip on how to do the market stats like this. So I wanted to share that little quick tip in the chat box with our members here today.
Oh, cool. Thank you. Debbie's so great about adding those. By the way, Debbie, not only has she put together hundreds of classes last year, but she's organized some resources I'm going to show you. She actually has a bunch of handouts. We call them cheat sheets. I'm going to show you where you can get those. And she organized our YouTube channel, the MiRealSource media page, so you can watch this class, this actual class we're recording right now, and you can watch all of our other classes there too. And she's got them in these nice little easy playlists, so you can catch up on everything. It's really cool. But the market stats that I was just showing you, you go into market stats under resources, you go to fast stats. And again, Debbie's including those handouts, so you can look at those. I know I've given you a lot of information today, but basically it's as easy as actually clicking on the county and the city that you want to see. So I clicked Fast Stats. I'm going to look in Macomb County because that's where I do most of my business. I'm going to go to Sterling Heights. Let's see what's happening in Sterling Heights today. Sterling Heights inventory as of right now, so it's as always one rolling month generally behind, and I'm going to look at my inventory. 55.6% down today in inventory. There were almost 300 homes on the market in 2019. We're looking at 130 right now. Wow, that's a big drop. And look what it's doing to our sales price. Our average sales price, $229, now $244. That is a big increase in 1 year. I save this as a PDF and I pull it in as a custom page. So these are all great examples of things that you can use for a custom page right within Cloud. So don't be afraid to use Realist. Don't be to tell them, hey, I see that you refied. I see that here's your sales price. Is the information on your home correct? Pull in things like Fast Stats, pull in things like Realist, pull in things like BS&A in your company marketing pages. And that's what will make a really effective CMA that will wow your seller. The extra work that you put into just creating those custom pages alone, I know it's a little bit of work to go in and add them in, but you only have to do it one time. Pull that information in for your resume, pull it in for your company information, so that every single time you do a CMA, it's locked and loaded there for you. And then lastly, so you can add your custom pages in. The very last thing I want to show you, you can also create different templates in your CMA. I have a long template, like for my engineer sellers who want to see all the details. They want to know every nail that was put into the house, and those type of sellers, they're looking for all the details. So maybe I want a really long, really detailed CMA for them. There's right on your customized page, there is a template area. You can go in, you can see, you can name them whatever you want. I did Colleen's short package. I did Colleen's awesome long CMA package. I did a lead generation package. And then there's some pre-built that are already there for you too. So don't be afraid. If you've got your CMA all set up just the way you want it, don't be afraid to go in and save your template. Because that way, the next time you're doing a CMA, you can go right up here. You can say, okay, you know what? I want to pull up my appraiser report or pull up my short sale package. If you've got your report all laid out, you can also just click Save as Template, and now it's there for you for the next time. So don't be afraid to utilize those templates to make it short and sweet for you. All right, Debbie, do we have any questions?
No, we've been answering them as they go. There was one a minute ago that was very interesting, though.
Okay.
So somebody had questions about how do you get your listings to Zillow and Realtor.com? They thought maybe it was a paid service. So I know that that's going to be changing with Zillow a little bit in the upcoming future. But for right now, Zillow and Realtor.com are syndicated sites where we, the MLS, ship your listings for you on behalf of your broker and with your broker's permission. So I thought that was an interesting question.
That is an interesting question. I think everybody has questions about Zillow right now, and so yes, it is interesting. And the nice thing is, if you are new and you're kind of getting familiar with those syndicated sites, one of the things I do want to tell you is make sure that you are going into the MLS to make any changes to those third-party sites. And I'm going to tell you why, because I had this happen personally. I would get I get this really nice email from Zillow, and it says, hey, congratulations on your new listing that I just put into the MLS. I go in and I click on it. It says claim your listing. I click on it, and then I notice the square footage didn't look right to me. So I went in and I just changed it in Zillow. And when I did that, unfortunately, what it did in the fine print is it said, you've just given your photos to Zillow to use. Because remember, whoever clicks the shutter of the photo on the camera, they own the copyright to that. So at that point, the MLS has an agreement that says you own your photos, you own your remarks, you own your details. When I clicked that, though, what it says is I just gave Zillow my photos. And to this day, I still have a for sale by owner using my photos because I gave them to Zillow, and they now have given them to the for sale by owner to use in order to get them to put the listing on Zillow.
Nice.
So yes, kind of felt dumb about that. And I didn't know how it worked. shocked. I just was all excited because I thought claim my listing. That's what you do, right? You go in, you claim it. We of course want you to claim your listings, and we do want you to do that. But the only thing is, we want you to claim it after it's closed, because you'll get, I promise you, you'll get that same email after you close it in the MLS. It'll say, congratulations on the sale of your listing. Would you like to claim it? That's actually when you want to claim it, because if you do it before then, there are two problems you will run into. One, you have just given away your photos and your comments, and a for sale by owner could and probably will end up using them. The other problem is that you've broken the connection that the MLS has. And so all the time I get calls from buyers who say, I found this house on Zillow and you didn't send it to me, Mr. Agent. Go in, look it up. Of course, that house has been closed for 60 days, but it's still showing active in Zillow. And why is that? The agent claimed it, they touched it, severs the connection with the MLS. That means when I mark it pending in the MLS, it's not pending in Zillow. I would have to go in and manually now do those extra steps. So, you know, if you are going to claim your listings, and that's great, we want you to get the stars and the ratings, and that's good, but don't claim it before you've closed it in the MLS, because as soon as you do that, the problem is you've given them, you've basically cut off that connection that when you close it, it will not be closed in Zillow. And only, you know, sometimes it's a year and I'm going back and I find things that are still not closed in Zillow because that connection has been broken. The other thing is you've given them the rights to your data, your photos, and your comments. So just be aware of that. If you make any changes, make them in Paragon, because it will feed over within 15 minutes so that you don't lose any of those rights.
And you know, that's one of the reasons why we love HomeSnap. It's the listing attribution will be there. So if Colleen lists this property and somebody else stumbles across it and they don't have their own agent, they'll see Colleen's name, not the guy or the girl who spent a lot of money to have their name top.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So really good question.
So I sent you guys the link to the quick tip video from Market Stats. You guys will have that short video there. Oh, is there a training slideshow on how to link your profile properly to Zillow? Ooh, no. But you know what? That's Justin. Justin, you can always give Colleen a call, tech support, as I throw Colleen out there. Thank you, Colleen. We could always walk you something through like that, because seeing how Zillow is not our proprietary information, we generally don't have training on items like that.
The training that we do have, though, I'm glad you said that, and yes, we'll be happy to help you. Debbie has done just an outstanding job of writing cheat sheets on all these. I threw like 9 different things that you did, 9 different products, 9, you know, go to Realist, go to BSA, and when you leave, you're going to be like, oh my God, what did that lady with the fuzzy hair say again? You know, it all becomes a blur, right? So Debbie, years ago, 7 years ago, I think, went in and created cheat sheets on every single one of our products. And by the way, they're not those technical cheat sheets you get from companies like Transaction Desk, which is, you know, Canada, and another one from Paragon, which is Wichita. They're actually cheat sheets we redid as the trainers. Debbie did an amazing job making them sound like we speak as agents and making them short and sweet. So if you're in Paragon and you go to the MLS documents section right up here at the top, you will find education. She has 63 cheat sheets that she's created for you guys. So if you go to the education file folder, there is a cheat sheet on just about anything. So if you want to know, for instance, how to add a PDF to cloud, like we were talking about today, you can go right to the cloud section that she's organized, or simply even type in cloud, and you will see a cheat sheet with step-by-step instructions on exactly how to do that. You can print it, and it will show you. She's done a great job of illustrating it with big arrows. It's short, it's sweet, and again, you can print it so you can have it and save it for a resource to use for the future. In addition to that, when you want to rewatch this class, let's say you don't do a CMA for a month. Well, by then you may have forgotten a lot of the stuff that we talked about, right? So you can always go to our YouTube channel. Sorry, I should have had that open already. You can always go to our YouTube channel where she's organized these great playlists. So if you wanted to see information on cloud, you can go to the cloud playlist. If you wanted to see information on our Mixing It Up show that we do monthly, which is a variety show. Let me switch from my personal account to the MiRealSource account so I can show it to you. You'll see a bunch of videos that are listed there. And so obviously just find the product or the topic that you need the help on. All the videos there are free to our members so that you can have help 24 hours a day. So I'm gonna go over to our library here. And Debbie, you did such a nice job organizing that and just making it so easy for everybody to find exactly what they're looking for. She's also done these great little quick tips, like how to pull up those fast stats that we just talked about. Every week she comes out with a new quick tips video, and they've just been a huge success with our members. But again, you can go right to our library. You can click on any of the videos that are here. When you see it, it'll look a little bit different. You'll have your playlists. You'll have, let me go to our videos here so you can see a little bit more of what it would look like.
I think John in tech support also put a link to this in Paragon, right on the front page as well.
Oh, great.
We are big fans of redundancy. We will have it here, there, and everywhere else to make sure that you can find it. There's a front door, a back door, and a side door to get to all of our things.
Yeah. So, and we have links to go into the podcast. As I mentioned, Debbie does those awesome quick tips. And then what you'll see, each video is listed out, but you'll also see playlists there. So you can actually go right into the cloud playlist. You can go right into the podcast playlist. You could go into Paragon. They're going to look a little bit different on my end because we're the creators of what they call the YouTube studio. But you'll see each one of these listed out where you can actually just literally click on it and we'll begin to play all those great quick tips or information about lock boxes or information about showing time or using the virtual showings and open houses. We have a lot of stuff that we did through the COVID pandemic that's listed there. So don't be afraid. Remember, go to the MiRealSource Media on YouTube. Subscribe when you're there so that you see all the new videos as they come out because we're always putting up new content, thanks to Debbie, and that will keep you in the know. All right, that's all I got. I'm talked out.
Awesome. Fantastic job, Colleen. Thank you so much for teaching today.
Oh, it was my pleasure.
Always a pleasure.
Thanks
Always
for
a pleasure
having me.
having you on.
All right, go sell, and go list some stuff. So we've got some stuff to sell, okay?
Awesome. Hey, and if you would like to find Colleen or any other realtor around, when you go to HomeSnap, go down to the agents and you can find all of the agents that are in real estate in our local markets and elsewhere. So if you can't find an agent's number, go to HomeSnap. You'll be able to find them.
Thanks, everybody. Have a great day.